Hello everyone and welcome back to Dragalia Foundry, a fan channel where everything Dragalia Lost can be found. Today is March 1st. It is the start of a new month. We got our Void Battle and Astral Raid treasure trades reset. All of those goodies come at a much needed time, as with the mana spirals it feels more costly than ever to fully build up your characters. So I know I was looking forward to today for that reason, but of course, with the start of a new month, we also get this month in Dragalia Lost. That is our news gauntlet, our preview of what's to come in March 2020. So I'm very excited to look through that, especially since this month is the 1.5 year anniversary of the game. And in all games, it's not necessarily a big deal, but since we did get something for the half anniversary last year, I do think for the 1.5 year, we are going to get some good stuff, and the last Dragalia Digest we had during the 1 year anniversary mentioned the scope of updates that was planned by the 1.5 year mark. So there are still some things like an encyclopedia and also the ability to replay old events that have not come out yet, and I think they'll probably come out this month since those are some of the few things missing from that old Dragalia Digest. We're going to see if that is actually explicitly mentioned or if there's just a general preview or mention that the 1.5 year anniversary is on the horizon. Let's go ahead and head into the game now, look at the notifications board, and click on this month in Dragalia Lost. We're going to read through this. I'm not sure how complete or scant this will be. Looks like it's pretty complete, so we're going to read through it, enjoy it, savor it. Hopefully there's some new insights here and some cool events to come. Alright, so here goes. Hello there, Yuji Okada here, director of Dragalia Lost. I hope you're enjoying the events that are currently live. I'm here to talk a little about A Dash of Disaster as well as other things that are coming up in Dragalia Lost. A Dash of Disaster. In this event, you can get a facility that boosts the stats of Blade and Wand adventurers. Also, Valerio, an adventurer who appears in the Summon Showcase, has a special mechanic that allows him to switch between 3 stances. These stances change his normal attacks and skills. He's a strong adventurer even if you don't switch between stances, but he gets even stronger when you switch between stances based on the situation. Valerio can even inflict frostbite on enemies with one of his skills. I hope you enjoy playing with the subtle differences in how he controls depending on his stance. I also want to point out that Valerio's second skill, Bon Appetit, applies a new effect called Inspiration to adventurers. If an adventurer's inspiration increases to stage 5, the next skill effect is guaranteed to be critical. Sweet. So Valerio is a very cool adventurer. I got to show him off a little bit in my previous video with some gameplay of a solo of Hybernhilda's Trial, but I've learned a little bit since then, so I will get into some thoughts on Valerio. However, I want to start off with what's at the top here, just the fact that we're getting a facility that boosts the stats of Blade and Wand adventurers. That's pretty awesome, and hopefully we will round out the facilities that upgrade weapon types eventually. From last year, we've had a facility that came out in a summer event that boosts the stats of dagger and bow adventurers. And for a while, they were the only weapon type that had that type of facility until now. And it felt appropriate because daggers and bows did need a little bit of a boost. Their damage modifiers were not that great. There weren't a lot of high power daggers and bows. Well, a lot's changed since then with the mana spiral. We have characters like Ezlith who are very strong. We have Delphi, another very strong dagger, Nefaria, a super powerful bow character, and Cerise, Monster Hunter Cerise, a very powerful bow character as well. So I'm glad that they have basically upped the power level just flat out of some of those weapon types so that there's less of a need for a universal boost. That said, I am surprised that the first 2 weapon types they wanted to cover with a new facility were Blade and Wand. Maybe, it's just sort of how it worked out that, like, this banner happened to have a blade and a wand. They knew Pipple was going to be a wand. They knew Valerio was going to be a blade. So they decided to do it this way. But I think it's pretty awesome. Those are already very powerful adventurers, so it's cool to see them get a boost. That said, I think maybe next up I would say Lance and Staff might need it the most. The other weapon types are, I guess, Sword and Axe. And then that would pretty much cover everything, I think, since there are 8 weapon types. So I think if I had to bet on what would come next, or at least be most beneficial, I would probably go with Lance and Staff. But honestly, the fact that it's Blade and Wand, 2 of the most powerful co-abilities and weapon types, I wouldn't be surprised whatever comes next for a weapon facility, and it might not happen for a long while either. So still pretty cool, pretty welcome to have access to. And as for Valerio, I wanted to update my thoughts on him a little bit since I first started testing him out. So I definitely still feel his basic attacks, once you get into his stances, feel slower to come out. There's definitely some lag time or starting animation before he dashes toward the enemy, and there's a heaviness to his attacks. It feels like they're a bit slow. So if you're facing an enemy that can interrupt you, it may not be the best, but you're probably going to be in those stances no matter what. And the reason I say that is my second observation is that combo time of +4. I kind of thought that was a lame ability. It turns out you pretty much have to try to lose combo with Valerio. Like, the 4 seconds really makes a big difference. You can wait around for enemies to reappear in the facility event. You could probably let Hybernhilda do a dive bomb, maybe hide behind volcanoes in the Hellfire phase. You pretty much are guaranteed to maintain your combo if you're not intentionally whiffing. So I think that combo time is a lot more potent than I expected. It also means you're pretty much locked into those stances once you get into them. That being said, one of the things that I realized was the SP gain is not uniform across the stances. And I found this out through data mines, the wiki, and then also BotanBot over on our Discord server. So thank you to all those resources. What it turns out is that the Desert stance has better SP gain. And in fact, one combo in the Desert stance is enough to fully charge Valerio's Amuse-Bouche skill. So that's his first skill, and basically what you'd want to do is do his combos in the Desert stance, switch over to the Appetizer stance to cast your first skill because you want it to inflict Frostbite typically. The stun and sleep and freeze on the first skill might be useful in certain contexts where those actually can affect the enemy, but probably as a one-off because that's a pretty uncommon affliction to be able to repeat. So typically you're going to want to switch to Appetizer stance to use the first skill. And then anytime you want to use the second skill, you probably want to be in Entree stance so you can get the critical rate buff. So he kind of plays in all 3 stances, but for your basic attacks, stay with Dessert. For your first skill, switch to Appetizer. For your second skill, switch to Entree. I think that that's the easiest way, most likely, to play him. I don't know as far as all the modifiers. I know that some of the stances do have more hits than others, I think, but that seems like a pretty surefire way to play him pretty consistently. Very fun character. I was really shocked that they put such a complex mechanic on a normal pool character, and honestly, I still find it very weird that his stances are not referenced on his abilities at all. Like, he just has this completely independent mechanic that isn't explicitly mentioned in the text of any of his abilities. Granted, his skills say that they do different things depending on what stance he's in, but I really think they should have explicitly mentioned this in his kit. If you think back to previous characters like Lathna, Gala Mim, or let's say Gala Ronzel. Gala Ronzel is a good example because he has these 2 gauges. His first ability says grants Gala Ronzel 2 gauges. Gala Mim and Lathna, their first ability says explicitly they're going to transform into a particular dragon regardless of the dragon they have equipped. I really feel like Valerio is a little bit incomplete in his description because it doesn't explain what inspiration does. It doesn't tell you what the stances are, or the fact that he gets the stances by having a combo count of 20 or more. I definitely think the combo count +4 is such a naked ability that they could easily add the text to explain the mechanic on that ability and maybe give it a unique name. But yeah, that's one weird thing about Valerio. And maybe that implies they're switching to a leaner templating, because there are things that get repetitive, like the energy mechanic templating. There's a lot of word text that goes along with that. That being said, speaking of energy, Pipple, as it turns out, has been awesome in these Master Eye Brynhilde clears. So pretty sweet to see Pipple getting that love and apparently being super good. I was wondering when I summoned for him whether he would make a splash or just be too weird to actually do something effective, but apparently the quadruple Pipple strategy is a pretty sweet one, so shout out to Pipple. Other than that, as far as the information's here, I think inspiration is sort of interesting. It says the next skill effect is guaranteed to be critical, so I guess that's good. It means you wouldn't waste this on a basic attack, and critical hit does 1.7 times the amount of damage as a normal hit. So I do think that this is superior to energy, but it doesn't work with heals, so that's one trade-off it has, is it would only work with damage-dealing skills, but still probably a little bit better than energy. The Dragon Nimbus also has a special skill which extends shapeshift time, allowing you to deal tons of damage when you shapeshift. Have not really seen how good Nimbus's dragon form is yet, but if it's anything like Arctos and Long Long, it could be pretty good. They have some pretty sweet dragon forms, especially Arctos, so there's a chance Nimbus has a good dragon form. And apparently when you use Nimbus's skill, it increases your dragon gauge by a lot, like 20%. That might also have some exploitation potential. If you're in a situation where you can ramp dragon gauge fast, maybe you can, continuously transform. Unfortunately, there's not really a character who wants both critical damage and has shapeshift mechanics like that in water. The only real shapeshift mechanic character that comes to mind is Zane Freed, and he did get his spiral, so now he can boost his own dragon gauge, which is pretty sweet, but Nimbus, the aura of having critical damage, doesn't seem particularly effective on Zane Freed, so I'm not sure if that will actually be a thing, but I kind of like when they complete cycles, so I'm happy that Nimbus exists. It's just that he's come at a time when we have a lot of powerful options these days, us for dragons, and we haven't gotten an 80% strength water dragon just yet, but I wouldn't be surprised if we get one sometime this year, so I think that we'll probably have a stronger water dragon eventually. Now we get some details on part 2, and I am looking forward to this because I really want to summon Mitsuba. So it says part 2 of the summon showcase will start in the near future, and it'll feature Mitsuba, an adventurer who appeared in the event. Like Valerio, Mitsuba can switch between 2 different stances which change her normal attacks and skills. These are called Sashimi Stance and Tempura Stance. A notification about this will be posted later, so check that out for more details. We're also planning on adjusting the autoplay feature for adventurers and dragons that have unique control options, so look forward to that in the future. Nice. I assume they're talking about the stances here for Mitsuba and Valerio. As far as dragons with unique control options, maybe they're talking about Popstar Siren, perhaps, because she can use her skill twice. Maybe that will be a thing. Otherwise, I'm not sure what they're referring to, but Mitsuba looks great in the artwork. I think she's a very cute character. I have to assume, because she's holding this kitchen knife, that she is going to be a water dagger, or at least a dagger of some type. Maybe she'll be of a different element. That would be pretty neat if she is. But as things stand, with all the great water characters that have come out lately, between Valerio, Pipple, Monster Hunter Cerise, and now potentially Mitsuba, I need to craft a lot of water weapons for these characters. I really like them. It's just too bad there's really not a lot of reason for me to play High Brunhilde's Trial and actually get to use them right now, because I mostly get flame weapons from Expert Agito from Volk. So still, I'm excited because with the Zane Freed Spiral that we previously got, perhaps our next Agito boss will be a flame element boss, and we'll be able to get to put some of these characters to use. And if nothing else, for the people who are still playing High Brunhilde's Trial, that's probably one of the healthiest trials as far as metagame diversity by this point. The only unfortunate thing with that trial is really the glitchiness of dive bombs, but other than that, I feel like that is a very solid trial. It's probably one of the best balanced in my opinion. Okay, so I guess that's it for A Dash of Disaster. Let's see what's next for Mana Spirals. Adventurers with Mana Spirals unlocked. We've unlocked the Mana Spiral for 3 more adventurers. As their Mana Spirals are unbound, the 4 strikes of Shadow Attuned adventurers Cleo, Staff, and Nefaria, Bow, gain an effect that removes 1 buff from enemies. This effect will be useful against bosses like those from the Agito Uprising. Meanwhile, the Water-Attuned adventurer Zane Freed gains the ability to inflict Frostbite with his skills and does more damage against frostbitten enemies, which greatly increases the damage he can deal. All of these adventurers have been in the game since launch, so you should try using them to see how much more powerful they've become. This was announced recently, but I want to reiterate that it's taking some time to make adjustments for the Shadow Attuned 3-star adventurers whose Mana Spiral will be unlocked, so you'll have to wait a little while longer for them. Thank you for your patience. Alright, so I hadn't talked about Zane Freed. You've seen how Cleo and Nefaria are basically essential for Expert Kayan at this point because of their Dispel mechanics, and Nefaria herself is quite a powerhouse. Cleo, good healer, kind of crept Jiangxia in terms of kit. But as for Zane Freed and the introduction of Frostbite, Frostbite is a pretty cool mechanic. It is a simpler affliction that gives water something to do, something to build off of, because it can be afflicted repeatedly, increases the damage that you deal to the frostbitten enemies. So I'm glad that this exists. It also feels like, now we can get some ice flavor, some wintry flavor characters who don't always have to freeze, since freeze is so often completely resisted by enemies. So I'm glad that we have this. I think it's going to be fun to see what the game devs design around it. And as for Zane Freed, I was pretty impressed with how they gave him a spiral. His second skill went from just being a team-wide buff to a team-wide buff that also deals damage and also increases the shapeshift gauge. So he feels a lot more cohesive as a character, and of course, Dragon Frostfang, his first skill, makes perfect sense to cause Frostbite, it being a Frostfang. So I think they did a pretty solid job with Zane Freed, but I do worry with the spirals, the way they've timed things, that by the time we get to harder content where Zane Freed could be used, they're going to drop 2 more essential water spirals the day before the new Agito battle. And that's really my only gripe with how Shadow had been handled. Was we got all these Shadow spirals, it was very exciting, we built some of the characters, and then the day before, a month later, and the day before the Light Agito boss, they dropped the 2 essential Shadow spirals after a lot of us had already invested in some of those other characters. So it's a good reminder that you should always wait and see what happens, I guess. But I do think Dispel as a mechanic honestly kind of made a lot more sense for characters like Curran and even Heinwald, who are investigating clues and solving mysteries, and that feels like something that could be translated as Dispel, like removing a buff or finding the weak point of an enemy. And yet, instead, Curran, as we know, has Poison Killer and Poison Punisher effect, basically, on his skills, and just does a bunch of damage. He does a lot of damage, he's pretty sweet, and it's pretty easy to play him even with an attack rate buff, which is nice. Heinwald does a good amount of damage. He still has a niche as a healer because he can deal the most damage, but still, I was kind of stung a bit by that coming out at the last minute and it not being the 3 stars that we were promised. So hopefully they really can deliver the 3 stars next month. But at this point, 2 months after the fact, I mean, they're not promising any other spirals up to now, so hopefully they can deliver whatever they do promise. But let's switch over to the next topic, the Agito Uprising. The Light Attune boss Cayenne recently joined the Agito Uprising. The Mana Spiral was recently unlocked for some more Shadow Attune adventures, so equip them with Chimera weapons or High Dragon weapons and use them to challenge him. Just like last time, you'll be able to craft a 6-star weapon using the materials from the first clear rewards for the standard difficulty in the Agito Uprising. Bosses that transform during battle, starting at expert difficulty, are a big part of the Agito Uprising, so here's some post-transformation art. This should be pretty cool. Alright, that's Volk. And that's Cayenne. Very cool. How interesting. They look kind of funny to me, honestly, like in this cartoonish style. They're not as menacing as I thought they would be and as they feel in the game. Maybe part of it is the music that comes up in the game, but very sweet portraits, so glad they included those. Enemy behavior and other factors in the Agito Uprising are designed to make these quests a little more approachable than Advanced Dragon Trials in terms of difficulty. To make these battles even more accessible, we'll also continue releasing Chimera enemies and Chimera weapons for the applicable element while we implement these battles going forward. You can create weapons that are effective against Chimera enemies by defeating Phantom enemies. While they may be challenging, we're designing Chimera battles so they can be cleared in solo play. Alright, so they acknowledge some people have been disappointed with the ease of Agito, but they acknowledge that it's more of a stepping stone toward Advanced Dragon Trials, or at least it's more accessible in its design. You can prepare for Advanced Dragon Trials by following the Phantom Chimera Agito Advanced Dragon Trial pattern. So if you're having trouble clearing Advanced Dragon Trials, try starting with the Agito. Very interesting, and they did do something different here with Volk and Cayenne. With Volk, it was almost a mistake to craft a 0 Unbound 6-star weapon. You really wanted that flame tree to power up your characters so that you could more easily grind expert if you were more enfranchised. With Cayenne, honestly, the shadow tree isn't super needed. You know, if you've got powerful characters, a Delphi with a Chimera weapon apparently is fine. A Cleo with a Chimera weapon is fine. If you have characters of that power level, you could probably pick up the 6-star weapon first and not be at a big disadvantage. And if you're somebody who hadn't cleared the Advanced Dragon Trials, well, even that 0 Unbound 6-star weapon could be a pretty good weapon to take into those trials. So I do think that they're mixing up the approach and difficulty a little bit here. Perhaps Volk was always meant to be that accessible, but it just took us longer to wrap our heads around it. But with Cayenne, it's been really busted open. I mean, there's like these 1-minute clears at this point, at least 90-second clears, probably 1-minute clears. It's super busted. I think there's probably like 3 Gala Cleo and Nefaria, a popular thing. Maybe throw in Ieyasu or Delphi, whoever it may be, but yeah, 4 DPS is pretty common at this point, or 2 Patias if you want to make sure nobody dies. So it's not as hard as we expected, but the master version is also not available yet, and maybe that will change things up a little bit. It's interesting though that they suggest Advanced Dragon Trials is kind of the ultimate here, because there's really not very far for high dragon weapons to go. Unless they're planning on introducing a tier 3 to the high dragon weapons, then it does feel like you're at more of a dead end, because they've explicitly said the 6-star weapons will have higher tiers in the future. So I do wonder about funneling toward high dragons as the end game, when the prizes from Agito, the 6-star weapons, sort of have more upside. But that is really a nitpick and kind of a minor thing. I'm just glad that this is more accessible to players, and hopefully they're actually seeing more players attempt this stuff. Alright, so events this month. We'll be reviving the Skyborn Spectacle raid in mid-March. We're also planning to unlock the Adventurer Su Fang's Mana Spiral, sweet. So if you haven't played this event, don't miss your chance to add him to your team. I'm pretty happy about that because I have a High Dragon Tier 2 dagger that I built for Wedding Aoi. So if I have enough testaments at that point, I might give Sufang the Mana Spiral treatment. We'll be adding the Mana Spiral for 2 other Oh, I see him. Oh, yes. Okay. We'll be adding the Mana Spiral for 2 other adventures at that time as well, and one of those adventures will be Hawk. Be on the lookout for more information via notifications. Hawk needs this. Hawk was Nefaria tier. Obviously now Nefaria is like goddess supreme of Light Agito. But Hawk, he's been through a lot. He has really been through a lot. And there are Hawk fans, there are true Hawk fans out there who believe in this man, but, you know, they're few and far between at this point. They practically could just rip off Nefaria's idea and put poison, just like they've done with Nefaria, to complement Hawk's stun, and that would be fine. Some of the other cool ideas I heard floated were things like Bleed, and I do think that would also be a pretty sweet direction for him. But whatever they do, my Hawk is ready. I am super excited about this because he happens to be a wind bow and I had built out a max Eleonora. Hawk is one of the very few characters who I also have maxed out completely. So I'm really looking forward to the Spiral. I'm excited to have a good character. That's one of the cool things about the Spirals is like some characters who just were not good at all suddenly become very, very respectable. And it tends to be the 5 stars because they get flashier upgrades. It's harder to make the 4 stars like reign supreme over everyone, but nonetheless, I'm super happy about Hawk, and whoever that other adventure is, it's funny that they're being kind of cheeky or coy about it. They don't want to explicitly say it. I'm curious who that's going to be. It could perhaps tie into the 1.5 year anniversary, so maybe it'll be a more iconic character. And we're getting a gala, right? Yeah, we're getting a gala in March too, so maybe it could tie into that as well. Okay, so what is left here? We'll be adding an interlude to Chapter 11 in January, and in March we'll add one to Chapter 12. This interlude will be crucial for the future of the story, so be sure to check it out. And then, here we go, the future of Dragalia Lost. As of this month, it will have been 1.5 years since the release of Dragalia Lost. We're planning some events for the end of March to celebrate the anniversary. We're also planning to release a Dragalia Digest where we'll talk about a version update at the end of March and the future of Dragalia Lost. Keep an eye out for notifications with more detailed schedule information. 1.5 year anniversary Dragalia Digest. Sweet. I mean, we don't really know anything, but it's probably going to be good. The first 1.5 year anniversary was very, very good, so I'm hopeful about this. Since adding the Revive and Mentor bonus features in January's update, we've received feedback that it has become easier to clear high difficulty quests, and I was happy to see that our data also shows more players challenging and clearing these quests. Awesome! I'm very glad that the feedback has been positive around that, because I think especially Revive has turned out to be a positive all around. That said, we've also seen cases where players who haven't cleared the quest before and players who want to get the mentor bonus are having trouble matching because it is hard to convey what you wish to accomplish through the room's objectives. This leads to players with different objectives being matched up, so we'd like to fix this in a future update by adding conditions for room creation. I think that that's an important acknowledgement as well. So Revives, I've seen nothing but praise. The mentor system, I'm not a participant in the system. I've gotten 1 mentor bonus now by coincidence. I just got my mentor bonus the other day. So I have no real commentary on the mentor system. I've just never run into a mentor room organically, and I'm not going out of my way to seek them out. It is honestly a big loss to not be seeking them out because basically by doing mentoring every week, it translates to about an extra 10-fold every month, so I have now significantly kneecapped my Wormite income, and especially since events aren't giving us much Wormite as they used to. We saw that with the Valentine's Confections event, to be fair, so it looks like so far the Wormite income has been pretty good with this facility event. But basically, I think that the mentor system needs a rework, but it's nice that it exists. It's led to some players profiteering a lot off of newer players and really exhibiting some behavior that's not great in seeking out such rooms. But I don't know. At least there are players in those queues looking for people to mentor, so perhaps it's not the worst scenario. And for the rest of us, we just have to acknowledge we're not getting as much Wormite as the people who are really farming noobs. But I'm not really sure how it should be adapted. I kind of think it would be nice if it was a monthly thing, or maybe you help people get their first clear that week, perhaps, so that you could continuously encourage people to come back for the weekly bonuses. But as things stand, I don't know if the mentor program really works with what it was designed to do. I do think it populates those queues, so maybe that's all it was, and it's effective at that, but I'm curious what type of workarounds or solutions they come up with for that. And there's not much left here, so let's go ahead and wrap up. Starting with Chapter 12 of the main campaign, we introduced a change to gameplay where players must complete endeavors to progress. These endeavors also serve as hints about how to clear quests, and we plan to continue implementing this update to gameplay moving forward. There are a lot of facets to upgrading in Dragalia Lost, so we want to convey this information to the player bit by bit as they progress through the main campaign so it's not overwhelming. That was a nice touch, and for one of the first battles in Chapter 12, you need to craft a Tier 2 4-star water-attuned weapon from the core weapons, and for the final boss, I believe, in that chapter, you need a Tier 3, or I guess both of them are Tier 3. Let me take this back. You need a Tier 3 4-star water-attuned weapon for the first boss, and a Tier 3 5-star water-attuned weapon for the final boss. I'll show you after this just so you can see what they are if you have any confusion about that. But those types of guiding tips and quests are great because you get a little reward, you feel good, and it kind of hints at you the type of power level and weapons that you need, especially now that there are so many. So in conclusion, this month we're giving the following items to players: Summon Voucher times 5, Exquisite Honey times 20, Skip Ticket times 30, Golden Key times 2. The next installment will be posted around April 2nd. I wonder what's going to be in store for us on April 1st. We're going to have to wait and see what they come up with this year, but it should be pretty fun. So that is it for this month in Dragalia Lost. In case there is any confusion about what I meant, I will just briefly show you. These are the core weapons. This is Tier 3 on the far right, so you need a water element weapon like this, Mercurius. These are the 5-star weapons. This is the Tier 3, so here you would need a water element weapon like Ionitide in order to get through Chapter 12 of the story. That is going to do it for this video, everyone. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed reading through this month in Dragalia Lost and the little color commentary that I provided today. Let me know what you are most excited for this month. I think for me, it's got to be the chance to summon Mitsuba, and then, of course, the 1.5 year anniversary. Although Hawk's Spiral is pretty exciting as well. I just have to save up those Champion's Testaments to make sure I'm ready in time. Anyway, though, thank you once again for watching. Thank you, as always, for watching. I really appreciate it. Have been more inspired to put out Dragalia content lately, so I'm going to try my best to continue making some videos. That is going to do it. So take care, everyone, and I'll see you next time.